Chapter 4, Naughty or Nice. Eddie waited until recess to tell his friends about Mr. Bell. When they were under the oak tree, he looked at each of his friends and spoke seriously. "Something is very different about Hollis Bell," he said. Liza pulled her wool hat over her blonde hair and looked at Eddie. "Don't go making fun of him just because he's short. He can't help that." "He's so short if he pulled up his socks he couldn't see," Eddie said. "But that's not what I'm talking about." Melody rolled her eyes. "Then exactly what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about elves," Eddie said. Melody looked at Howie. Howie looked at Liza. They all looked at Eddie and started laughing. "Elves?" Melody said, holding back a giggle. Eddie's face turned red. "It's not funny. I think Mr. Bell and his men are a bunch of elves." "You mean like in Santa and his elves?" Liza asked. Eddie shrugged. "I'm not sure about Santa, but I'm certain these guys are elves." "If they're elves, then where's Rudolph and the other reindeer?" Howie asked with a smile on his face. "You can joke all you want," Eddie said, "but you can't tell me it's normal for so many trees to get planted that quickly." He pointed to the playground. At least 50 brand new evergreen trees went around the outside of the playground. All the trees were decorated with lights and candy canes. A few kids were already picking the candy canes off the trees and eating them. Liza gasped. "Where did those come from?" "Elves," Eddie said. Howie shook his head. "There has to be some explanation. Nobody can plant that many trees that quickly without some kind of magic, let alone decorate them," Eddie said. "It always takes my dad at least a week just to untangle the Christmas tree lights," Liza said. "I think you two have had too much Christmas candy," Melody said. "Mr. Bell is short, but he's not an elf." "Mr. Bell did say that all those Christmas trees reminded him of home," Liza told them. "Maybe he is from the North Pole." "I doubt if elves plant trees," Howie told them. "And I'm pretty sure they don't wear hard hats." "There's one way to find out for sure," Liza said softly. Eddie smiled as if he read her mind. "And that's exactly what we're going to do." "You're not talking about messing around that trailer again," Melody warned. "Mr. Bell told us to stay away from it." "I'm not going to mess around it," Eddie told her. "Good," Melody interrupted. "I'm going to go in it," Eddie said. "What?" Melody, Liza, and Howie said together. Eddie pointed to the trailer. "Something is going on in there. Maybe something bad." "Something bad is what you'd be doing if you go in there," Melody reminded him. Eddie shrugged. "It'll be worth it to protect the school." "Protect the school from what?" Howie asked. "A bunch of elves?" "Elves are nice," Liza whispered. Eddie looked to see if Mrs. Jeepers was watching. She was standing across the playground with her back turned to them. She seemed busy talking to a group of girls. "We can't be sure they're nice," Eddie said, "and I don't want to take any chances." Without saying anything else, Eddie walked quickly toward the trailer. He stopped when he was on the far side. Right behind him were Melody, Howie, and Liza. "I thought you didn't want to do this," Eddie whispered. Melody looked at him. "We just came along to keep you out of trouble." "We're not going in," Howie said. "We'll just peek in the door." Eddie smiled and looked around the playground. The men from the Bell Construction Company were hard at work, digging more holes for trees. Mrs. Jeepers still had her back turned to them. Eddie took a deep breath and crept up the stairs to the trailer. Slowly, Eddie pushed the door open. The 4 kids peered inside and gasped. Holy Toledo, Eddie said. They really are elves. His three friends didn't say anything. They were too busy looking inside the trailer. Tables were squeezed into every available space, and each table was covered with toys. There were dolls in doll beds, baseballs and gloves, bicycles that were partly put together, and even a huge dollhouse that took up an entire table. Wow, Liza squealed. It looks like a toyland in here. An elf toyland, Eddie reminded her.